My name is Mark Seiden, Vice President of Northern New Jersey Division and a proud President's Society member. My family has been involved with J&F for as long as I can remember, and I am proud to be here as my family's legacy. It is my honor to welcome you to our Israeli wine tasting hosted by Northern New Jersey tonight. We will hear from Josh Greenstein of Israel Wine Producers Association and have a special guest appearance by Spice Master Lior Lev Sercarz of La Boite. As I look around the Zoom screen, I am thrilled to see so many faces, both new and seasoned, to learn about J&F USA and the work in Israel. With your help, we can continue investing in its land and people through community building, forestry and water innovations, Zionist education, and so on. This evening, we will learn about our Galilee Culinary Institute, a prime example of innovation. We couldn't continue this work without our investors, you. As employment hits an all-time low in Israel from COVID, our brothers and sisters need our support. They need you. If you haven't donated this year, join me in considering making a meaningful donation in 2021 fiscal year by going to jnf.org/donate Israeli wine, or there is a link in the chat box. Now I turn the program over to Bob Oppenheimer, co-president of J&F Northern New Jersey.
Thank you, Mark. It's good. It's good to be philanthropic and not know which organization you're on with this evening, but thank you. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Bob Oppenheimer, and along with my wife, Joan, we serve as co-presidents of the Northern New Jersey division of J&F USA. I'm also a proud President's Council, Century Council, and National Major Gifts Executive Committee member. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers. First, we will hear from Lior Lev Sercarz. Lior is the chef, spice blender, and owner of La Boite, a biscuits and spice shop in New York City. Sercarz and La Boite have been featured in the New York Times, Vogue, In Style magazine, Every Day with Rachel Ray, Food and Wine magazine, and the Savoir 100. Since the start of his career, he has worked closely with chefs from around the world. In 2012, he produced a cookbook entitled The Art of Blending, and his second book, The Spice Companion, was published in 2016. We will then head into our wine tasting with Joshua Greenstein. Josh is a fifth-generation wine industry expert. His career experience has spanned diverse areas of the industry as both a supplier and distributor. As Executive Vice President of the Israeli Wine Producers of America, Greenstein acts as the voice of the Israeli wine industry in America. Traveling throughout the United States, he educates consumers on the quality that Israeli wines offer, many of which are award-winning and highly rated within the international wine community. Before we get started, I'd like to also extend a warm welcome to a very special guest. Tonight, we are joined by Robert Rosenthal, host of the All You Can Eat podcast, which is heard live each week by 45,000 listeners and then archived in perpetuity on the two largest platforms in the world, iHeartRadio and Spotify. Robert is also a former ad agency president with a professional culinary degree, a cookbook author, and a journalist specializing in culinary tourism. And he has been published in Food and Wine and various well-known media outlets. Lior and Josh had the pleasure of being interviewed by Robert prior to this event. Now, without further delay, Lior Lev Sercarz.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. Hopefully you have some grape juice in a form of one of Josh's wines. I have two. I'm going back and forth between the White Slam and the Segal whole cluster. Josh will correct me later if I'm saying something silly, but I did my homework pre the show. I like to be prepared. So I'm excited to hear from Josh about the wines, and thank you for inviting me to be part of it and seeing some familiar names on the list. That's the beauty of this technology. You can see who's in, who's not. including my direct boss, Cheryl, who is on the call. And then I'd like to talk to you for a little bit about what we're doing with JNF. I can say JNF on this call. Sometimes there's calls are like, please say Jewish National Fund. You all know JNF, so it's much easier. A project that started about 3.5 years ago with JNF, but actually started about 25 years ago when I announced to my parents that I would like to become a cook, and they were heartbroken and devastated. And it took them about 15 years to get over it. I think you mentioned these prestigious magazines. I really need to talk to somebody on the team to add the most important magazine that I was featured on, which is Hadassah magazine, for those of you who subscribe to it. That's when my mom said, you actually do have a job. You are featured in Hadassah. You know, Vogue and Rachel Ray didn't really count, so in food and wine. The goal 25 years ago and today is really the same, is how do we bring more life and more initiatives to Israel and primarily to the Upper Eastern Galilee, where I'm from. And in order to do that, how do we get people's attention? And I, for 30 years or so now, know that if you want to get somebody's attention, you got to get some wine and you got to get some food, and then the conversation can start around the table. And I joined forces with Russell and JNF, as I said, about 3 years ago, in thinking of how do we do this. Today it has a name. It's called the Galilee Culinary Institute, which is in very, it's progressing very well and very fast, and happy later on to give more updates if there are any questions. But we decided to build an international institute that will train culinarians. And I'm saying culinarians and not just chefs and cooks and pastry, because we see the world of culinary as much bigger, anywhere from food science, technology to winemaking, cheese making, and how to allow these graduates that will come through the doors of GCI to succeed in whatever career they choose to do. If they want to be a cook, that's great. But if their call in life is to become a food stylist or a photographer or even a writer or a journalist, and we have some today with us, that's totally fine. We are there to help support their dreams and to identify what they're good at. The institute will be located in Kibbutz Gonen, which is about 10 minutes south of Kiryat Shmona. We have secured the grounds. We have an existing building that will be renovated, a brand new building that will be built, and 20 rooms that could host some of our students and some of you when you come to visit us in the north. And I cannot thank all of you and many hundreds of thousands other ones around the country who I'm blown away every day when somebody makes a contribution to GCI, thinking that my idea 25 years ago is now supported by so many amazing people to really bring this dream to life. We're already seeing some great excitement in the north, even though GCI isn't even open yet, whether it's students who want to enroll or whether it's mothers inquiring about their son's bar mitzvah in 2022. We are not renting the space yet, although if you talk to Russell, he said every time somebody calls about it, take a deposit for the bar mitzvah. We'll make it somehow. So, you know, we're working relentlessly on curriculum these days with some amazing people in Israel and the US. We're planning kitchens, outdoor spaces, the rooms, conference rooms, auditoriums, the restaurant, and working also really hard on this upcoming October. If all goes well, we will be hosting our first GCI annual summit with chefs from the US and Israel, and a special day event for those of you who will join conference this year, hopefully, and we'll be really excited to see you all there for some fun demonstrations and some activities. This is a global project, and we see it as such. Obviously, we are quite selfish. Israel and the Galilee are, you know, the things that gets us going, but we also want to get lots of attention from students and from professors. And if COVID taught us one thing, is that technology can be a positive thing sometimes. And we are working, as I mentioned, with curriculum company here that will allow us to do a lot of this teaching via different platforms, whether it's students in the Galilee taking class with a professor from elsewhere or the other way around, and just for people who want to join recreational classes, just to get some more knowledge. The GCI is also definitely home for everybody, visitors and amateurs alike who want to come and take a 1 hour class, a 1 day, a 1 week class. If you just need a break from everyday life and you want to move to the Galilee for a month, that's fine too. We'll find a room for you. I had a funny story about a JNF donor who wanted to enroll her husband, who is in his 70s. And I was just curious about what's going to happen. She said, he's retiring soon. The last thing I need is to see him home every day. Why don't you take him for 2 years? And that would be great for the two of us. So maybe that will happen too. We're working also to secure some land right next to GCI so that our students can learn about farming and composting and recycling and all of these great things that are very important. There's great movement in the Kiryat Shmona area from other tech companies, Israelis and from abroad, whether it's Migal, whether it's the Tel Chai College that's right there, and we're partnering with all of these institutions for professor educators, but also just to exchange knowledge, because even if you are a food tech company, you do need a chef to be involved because you're dealing with food, and the other way around. There's some initiatives around culinary incubators and so on and so forth. So really a great, exciting project for all of us. I want to leave some time for Josh to talk about his wine, but I'm still here. And if there are any questions along the way, please feel free to ask them. I'm also going to type in shamelessly my email address. So if you want to reach out later on about some questions about GCI, about anything else, here we go. It's right in. Stay in touch. You know, it's something that we're all in together. It's not me. It's not JNF. It's not Russell. It's all of us together, really bringing amazing change to the north. I can tell you that there's some homes already being built around the site of GCI, and we're not even there. So I think it means that we're doing something right, where people want to move to live around GCI and be part of this great initiative. When is it planned to open? Sure. So our goal is to open in October 2022. I don't have the holiday calendar in front of me, but somewhere between Sukkot, Rosh Hashanah, and whatnot. But that's our goal, to greet the first group of students, about 15 or 20 of them, and start the program, which will most likely be about 18 months of lots of experiences and lots of traveling around Israel and really showcasing Israel and the North, which is one of the most unique culinary scenes in the world. I think maybe it's second to Queens, where you can meet so many ethnicities in such a small place. And doing, you know, a Druze cooking class followed by a Moroccan one, and then a Bedouin one, and a Palestinian, and all within 1 day. Just an unbelievable opportunity for people to come there. So this is an open invitation to join us on this great ride for those who have yet. And I'm going to pass it on to Josh to tell you a bit about the wines that you're drinking tonight. Josh, he left maybe.
No, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, here he is. Yeah.
Are we showing a quick video, or are we go jumping right to me? So, hello everybody. My name is Joshua Greenstein. If you guys should have your wines in front of you. First, I just want to say thanks to Lior and just the quick power of JNF and my personal connection to JNF. I met Lior personally through JNF, and we've done a lot of events and stuff together since we've met. So just, you know, thank you to JNF for just creating two good relationships and allowing that to continue. And keep Lior's email handy. If you have like a cooking question, maybe you shoot him a quick question, he'll get back to you. He'll help you with that. And then my personal connection to JNF is, you know, going to Israel as a kid and going over and doing all the fun stuff and planting the trees. And now new traditions I have with my 7-year-old and teaching him about the blue box and making him put his money in there each week and donating and doing his part. Just a real way that I like to carry it on also. So that's me. Now let's get to the wines. So you have 3 wines in front of you tonight. Don't feel obligated to drink them all tonight. Andrew, they'll be back to the store to get more wine soon after they taste them all tonight. So thank you to Andrew and his great shops also for having us pick up these wines. They're all available at ShopRite in Paramus and Englewood. And promoting these wines as Israeli is important. So we have 3 wines in front of us tonight. We have 1 white and 2 reds. And we're going to start with the lighter wine, which is going to be the white. This is Flam. So I see everyone has that bottle of Flam in front of them. A white wine should normally be served chilled. So hopefully you guys had this in the fridge for a little bit. And it's coming out now and warming up a little bit. Sometimes that chill, hides some of the stuff that the chef, will call him in this situation, the winemaker, was intending for the wine to do. So sometimes when wines are really too cold, we don't get the true taste. But for something like this is a beautiful, unoaked Sauvignon Blanc Chardonnay. Sometimes you say the word Chardonnay to people, you scare them and they back off and they're a little, timid by it. But I think this one is friendly. This one's easy drinking. This one has seasonal oak, and the Sauvignon Blanc really blends it all together and makes it nice. But what's going on with Israeli wine is important. Wineries like this, Flam Winery, that are consistently getting, 90 points, Parker, Wine Enthusiast, Spectator, which are real deal wine rating companies. These are not, the Texas State Fair gives it a 97 points. This is Robert Parker. This is, well respected in the industry. And it's coming together. The joke I make is I say Israel's been making wine for about 3,000 to 5,000 years. They just got good at it. All right. It took a long time of practicing and preparing. And, now we're at the point now where we're embracing technology and we're utilizing it. And I was on a Zoom recently, and I was on with a bunch of sommeliers. And one of the somms said, they can't think of another place in the world where you'll see 1 row of Cabernet, 1 row of Merlot, a bunch of Cabernet Franc, a whole vineyard of mango trees, some almonds, and some this, all in like one little tiny square block. It's amazing that Israel has the ability just to produce and do. And listening to Lior speak all the time, if I'm a little home cook and I want to be good, I would go up there. So like Lior, let's definitely talk to my wife and see how long she's willing to kick me out for, and see how long you'll take me. And it's fun to taste and to try all new things. And I think that we're trying new things these days. And, maybe you wouldn't have picked up this wine in the wine shop, or you wouldn't have tried it because it said Chardonnay on it. But I think trying these type of wines and trying new things is really a cool way. But a little bit about this winery. This is Flam. This is a family-run winery in the Judean Hills by Gilad and Golan Flam. And the most important Flam is Israel Flam, the Papa Flam, as I call him. What makes him really cool is he was the first winemaker in Israel to study at UC Davis, which is, the biggest, the best school out there for learning about wines, especially back then. There weren't many schools available. And he went over but soon we'll have one in Israel that maybe he could learn a little something at, or come teach back at or something. So it's really cool to see that this guy that went over and learned at UC Davis came back, worked at Carmel Winery at the time, which was the biggest, had a few kids, and the kids said, "Hey, Dad, we want to make wine too." So to have Abba standing behind you, teaching you how to make wines, you're consistently making 90-point wines like this Flam Blanc. It's really beautiful and historical also, because the Judean Hills, you'll find wine presses all throughout the mountains over there, thousands of years old. So they've been doing it for a long time in this region. Lior, I'm going to put you on the spot here. You have that Flam Blanc in front of you, right?
I do.
Will you give me some of the food pairings, or what does this make you think of?
Well, I drink white with nearly everything, and luckily we're past the days where white was for fish and red is for meat. And I actually drink quite a lot of wine with kind of fatty pieces of meat, with ribeye and hanger steak. I think the acidity really cuts through that. I also enjoy, more full-bodied red with that. But first of all, it's a great, wine to just have on its own, just to enjoy it on its own. And whether we're having it with like a little bit of fennel, which is in season, So that would be great. And so any appetizer or raw fish would be also really nice with that. I could see that happening too. Yeah, so definitely that fish, obviously, but that's easy. That's kind of an easy pick to go with that.
I look at white wine these days, Lior, as like an appetizer. Like, people say, I'm having steak for dinner, I have to drink red wine. I said, but it's going to take you at least, half hour to an hour to cook it. Why don't you open the white wine and make that your appetizer? That will get you to the red wine because, guys, we have 3 bottles of wine in front of us tonight. Don't feel obligated to drink it. For those of you who do finish all 3 bottles, pound it out. Let's go. Give me the pound. Good luck tomorrow morning. I believe there will be Dan is going to be providing Tylenol to you guys tomorrow morning and a bottle of water. But listen, you don't feel obligated to drink this whole bottle of white when you're done and you want to move on to the red. Like Lior said, you're cooking now. Maybe you're on your steak. You take the cork, you put it back in the bottle, and you stick it in the fridge for what I'm about to say is my opinions. Maybe 3 days you'll get out a bottle of white wine. If you leave it in the fridge for about 3 days, you can still keep drinking it and keep going back and visiting it. With a red wine that we're about to get to, you get probably about 3 to 4 days out of it, but you don't put that in the fridge. I would keep that in a cool place on my kitchen counter, away from the coffee machine, away from the toaster, opposite corner in the cool, dry spot, and let it go for another 2-3 days. Also, for those of you who have fruit in the house, or maybe little kids, I have a 7-year-old and there's always strawberries and blueberries and some peaches that are about to go and all that fruit that I don't want to throw away. I chop it up and I make a beautiful sangria. I put a little brandy, a little cognac, a little whatever I have in the house, and I stick that back in the fridge, and I get another couple days out of it. And that sangria recipe is also fun for Passover as like a before or after thing also, which is coming up. So there's no reason to waste. So we're going to, want to try more wines as we get our palates start to get more sophisticated and want to try different wines. So again, open all different wines, have them around, and save them. So the second wine we're going to be getting to is the whole cluster Pinot Noir. And this is really a cool thing. We chose some really funky wines tonight, which I think are pairing well with the evening. What's cool about this one is the winemaker. I'm going to tell you a little story about this guy Ito. There's something called Master of Wine. There's less than 400 in the world today. 2 of them are located in Israel. Okay. The rest of them are all over the world. And Lior, this is crazy what I'm about to say. Lior is the only winemaker producing a wine that retails for less than $10. Okay. So I don't know if anyone's ever had Barcom Classic Cabernet or Pinot Noir. Maybe you had it at a bar mitzvah or in your backyard or on Wednesday with pizza. That's a $10 bottle of wine made by a master of wine. It's crazy. It's unheard of. It's amazing. Barcom, which is a large company in Israel, put a lot of money and time and effort into learning, into schools, into education, and to fit the theme about what we're doing tonight, this culinary school, how important further education is. And I promise you that most of the chefs that are going there, there'll be a bunch of new guys, but there's going to be old guys going there too that want to relearn all the new tricks that Lior's coming up with, or his friends are coming up with. This is a thing that, especially with wine, you never stop learning. You're always trying new things. So this is the second master of wine in Israel. There's one more guy, Gal Zohar, who's studying over there now also to become the third. It's an amazing feat. I wouldn't even want to try to do it. It's like you have to be able to tell the vintage, the date, the grape, the altitude, the time of the day it was picked, like everything about that wine, this guy knows. And he puts it back into his wine. And he's doing cool things. So this one's called the whole cluster. All right. So we all know what a bunch of grapes look like, little, it gets big down to here. Whole cluster is when they throw the whole cluster in. They're not picking it out. They're not pruning it that much. They're leaving it as whole as it can, and they're pressing them as whole clusters. So they're getting more contact. They're getting more stems. They're getting more of that rugged, beautiful flavor that the grapes were intended. This is an old school style of doing things. So this is a fun wine. Pinot Noir is not a grape you find too often throughout the country. It's something that you find, usually in France or usually in the U.S. It's not necessarily a grape that you would look at and you would say, oh, this grape is an Israeli terroir. But the beautiful part about Israel is you can grow a lot of stuff. Like I was saying before, you have the ability to grow wines that are located in the middle of the desert, which I'm pulling up a picture of right now to show you guys. You have wines that are located in all different places throughout the world, but Israel can do all these grapes in this tiny little country. It's unheard of to be able to see that they're doing it. And I'm sorry for the lack of technology, me not sharing a picture here, but I mentioned Barcom Classic before. This is a picture, an aerial shot of the Barcom Pinot Noir being grown in the middle of the Negev desert. All right. And the reason I'm showing you that picture is just to show you the feat that Israel has overcome every challenge that's thrown in front of them. They figure out how to do it. They figure out how to grow it, and they get it done. They want a Pinot Noir from Israel. They do it. And I was talking before about these ancient wine presses. This is just one of the examples of what this ancient wine presses looks like. Something like this is 3,000, 5,000 years old, and they find these all over the country. They found them near the Yatir forest. They find them next to Flam. They find them in the Galilee. They're all over the place, and it just shows you the rich history, that Israel has. We're not talking about another winery today, but I like all my little tchotchkes that I leave around my desk, and it gives me stuff to talk about. But for those of you who know the winery Sagot is a winery located right outside of Jerusalem, and they have that famous coin on the bottle. And I actually have one of the coins. They found a couple hundred, I believe, and this is one of the originals from 66 CE that was found in this cave. Why am I showing you this? Because the Israelis were in the wine business back then. And the people that were coming to buy this wine were the Romans coming to buy the wine. They were exporting wine. So they were making some good juice at points. So this is the whole cluster Pinot Noir. This is one of the newest wines and grapes coming out of Israel, made by Edo. Pinot Noir, I personally like to serve a little bit slightly chilled. That's how I personally like my Pinot Noirs. To bring it into the Passover mood, it's a lighter wine. We're working our way up as we get through the Seder. You want to start with something lighter, just like we're eating. And Pinot Noir is a fun grape. I think it goes well with all things. I think it can go well with, it's just the easy pairing grape, personally, I think. And it's fun. It's easy. Most people like a Pinot Noir. If you don't love red wine, this is a good grape for you to start with. It's easy. It's not too heavy. And it lets you, try the next thing. So we got one more wine that we're going to be tasting. I know so take a deep breath. If you have water next to you, feel free to take a sip of water in between each glass of wine. For those of you who are powering through it, just have another sip of wine and we'll get to the next one. So the next story, and as you can tell, I'm a storyteller. I think anyone can go online right now and type in any of these wines and find out what grapes, what the sugar content was, when it was picked. You guys, you don't want some guy on Zoom for a half hour telling you that. You guys want to hear cool stories about these guys. And that's what I think makes all these winemakers unique, because they all have their own special story. That's what makes each one of them, interesting and special. So the next one we're getting to is Blue Sea. This is a fun wine. And the reason it's fun, it's made by Jeff Morgan, a local California boy, right? He has Covenant Winery in Napa that many of you probably know very well. Jeff's a great guy. Jeff works in the media. Jeff worked in the wine business. He made Aliyah very recently. I saw a picture of him on Facebook. I spoke to him a couple weeks ago, but I think recently he just made Aliyah. Actually, he's moved to Israel. And the dude's smart. He created a job for himself before he got there. He made his own winery. I mean, there's not many guys out there that have a winery both in California and Israel. Michael Feynman, are you on the call? Michael Feynman's favorite NBA player in the whole world, Amari Stoudemire, is the only other winemaker in the world that I know of that has a winery in Israel and California. So, Michael, if you're looking for some trivia to make some money off of somebody, that's your trivia question, okay? Name the two winemakers, California and Israel. It's Stoudemire and Jeff Morgan, which is, come on, that's like you can make some money there, Michael, all right? So, I mentioned Amari also because, Amari's making 3 wines in Israel. He's done a lot of stuff with the JNF recently and continues to do. I'm playing in a fun poker tournament next on the 11th. So it's doing fun stuff with JNF, and Amari helped sponsor that and do some stuff with that. So Jeff's awesome. Jeff, was making some high-end Napa wines. Here in the U.S., many people that were drinking wines knew Napa and trusted Napa and would only go to Napa. And before Israel got to the point, again, for being recognized and making great wines, Napa was a very trusted place. And they knew how to make great wines. They knew how to grow, more importantly, not great wines, great grapes. One of my colleagues back in the day used to tell me there's 3 things that make a really good wine. 3. Very simple. Only 3 things. Good grapes, and good grapes. Everything else is a joke. That's all you need is good grapes. So it's important for these farmers, the winemaker can mess up a wine real quick and they'll tell you that. So it's important to go, from the beginning, to start from this. Also, you'll see part of my tchotchke wall is all these 7 different types of terroir from all over Israel. And I love showing these just to show you the diversity of this Golan Heights, Syrian Heights volcanic soil. Or where we're going in the Galilee. Here we go. Lior, we got some Terra Rosa soil from the Galilee. So when I can't get to the Galilee, I take this out like this. All right, guys, there. I'm in the Galilee right now. And it's cool to be able to see, this Jerusalem Mountains white sand. Or remember, I showed you the picture of the desert before. Here's that white sand that they're growing grapes in the middle of the Negev. So it's cool to be able to see that these are types of soils that you find in different countries, not in one country the size of New Jersey. So Israel's really doing hard. So Jeff's doing a great job making some wines. I don't think, you put a lot of time and effort into growing your name in the wine business. One example, I talk about kosher because I know we're talking about kosher for a second. So I'll end with this. Kosher has a big misconception a lot of times of being stereotyped as being not great or this or that. And I'll leave you with 2 things. Trust me, Jeff Morgan wouldn't make his wine kosher if he thought it was affecting quality. He wouldn't put his name on it. But also, how many people have heard of Drapier or Laurent Perrier or Chateau Valandrone? All these crazy French companies. We're talking about French and speaking with a proper French. I can't say half of them. But all these French companies that are making non-kosher wines and selling out of them every single year for $50, $60, $80, $100, $500 a bottle have no problem making non-kosher wines and selling out. But more recently, since the community is starting to appreciate wine, they're starting to make kosher versions of all these wines. And trust me, if they thought that quality was being affected in any way, they wouldn't make them kosher. Some of them are even movushal. Some of them are even this, and some of them are even that. So forget the K word. It doesn't mean anything. Israeli wines are here to stay. They're kicking butt. They're getting the recognition they deserve for the past 3,000 to 5,000 years. And guys like the Flamboys, guys like Lior, Ido, guys like Jeff Morgan that are going over there and cooking and learning and making great wines are really starting to put Israel on the map, in my opinion, for what it deserves to be on the map for. It deserves to be on the map for great food, great wines, a great beach that I want to be on so bad right now. I'll close my eyes and be on Tel Aviv like right now. And these things that are great, let's talk about this stuff. Let's keep talking about the fun, the positive, the food and the wine. When it comes time to give a gift for the holidays, it's someone's birthday, it's an anniversary, you know what you do? Don't send them a bottle of Johnny Black or a bottle of scotch or something like this. Send them a gift card to Lior's restaurant. Send them something from Israel. Send them a bottle of wine. Send them Michael Salman Olives, a gift certificate to one of his restaurants. Support the chefs, support the wine industry, and always find a way to give. Everyone will be happy with anything, one of these things. So this is our way of doing it and giving back and educating people about the good and the fun coming out of Israel. So I thank you guys all for having me tonight. I think I'm going to throw it back over to Bob. And if you guys, thank you again. I'll put my email on the bottom if anybody has any questions for me also.
Josh and Lior, thank you very much for being with us this evening. It was a great evening, and we will, I guess, continue to imbibe a little bit and maybe not finish the bottles, but certainly enjoy them for the rest of the evening. So it's an opportunity to ask questions either of Lior, if you have questions on the spice area, if you have questions on the Galilee Culinary Institute, or to Josh on any of the kosher wines we had this evening or anything further in the wine area. I also want to take an opportunity for those of you who may not have met yet, Jacqueline Yehudiel, who is our staff professional. Why don't you give a wave?
Hi, everyone.
So now there's an opportunity to I guess, ask questions. If you want, unmute yourselves and not all at once, but ask questions, or you can put them in the chat box also.
Hi, this is Larry Beck. I sent a couple of questions to on the chat box. The Covenant wine is wonderful. It's nice and tanniny, very full. It doesn't say what varietals is it. Is it a European varietal or is it a biblical varietal that I know they have now found in Israel of grapes that were never planted in Europe, but actually come directly from the Middle East thousands of years ago? What varietal is the Blue Sea?
Josh, you're muted.
Thanks, Larry. The Blue Sea is actually a blend of Cabernet Syrah. He changes the spice blend each vintage depending on which quality and which taste he wants to try each year. But there are a lot more, especially right now. For example, the winemaker at Barcom is doing a Mowawi and an Argamon, and you'll see a ton of this cool indigenous funky grapes, which I love. And I actually had a whole text chain going with the Barcom winemaker later this morning and just talking about what's going on in Israel, where's we coming, and what the second part of your question of those indigenous funky grapes, you're going to see a lot more of that stuff, which I'm excited about.
Wow, amazing. Thank you.
Could you pick up the bottles so we can see the bottles? Because I'm on the West Coast and I could not get that wine.
If you're located on the West Coast, whereabouts?
Seattle?
Seattle. I would go online, and there's a couple websites that deliver online. Otherwise, next time you're in Teaneck or Englewood, you'll swap by and say hello to Andrew, because I don't like to promote other stores online, but he doesn't ship. So in
In
this
the
situation,
meantime,
I
could
would
you
say
lift up the bottle so we can see the bottle?
the one that you can check with our friend Jeffrey, who's holding up the Covenant Blue Sea. If you look at Jeffrey's screen, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Vanna.
Hold on. We've got to make it large. Oh, okay.
That's the Covenant Blue Sea. You want to hold up? The next one he's going to be holding up will be
The flam, can you hold up the flam?
the Flam. That's the Flam, and that's the white wine, Judean Hills. And they studied in Italy. That's why they have a very Italian style. They make a Flam Classico, and they also make this Flam Blanc and a couple other ones. Thank you, Vanna. And the last one is the Syrah, the Pinot Noir. I'm sorry. Thank you.
No, you're Vanna.
Oh, we're on mute. No, you're Vanna now.
So that's the whole cluster. That's Seagal. Thanks, Jeff.
I thought you were going to say, Jeff, thank you, Vanna.
I have a question for Lior.
This is Vanna. Vanna's right here.
No. I have a question for Lior about the Institute.
I'm here.
Okay. You say there's going to be it's going to be kind of small classes. I have a 19-year-old daughter who's in university, but was planning on maybe going to culinary school like the CIA after college, but she loves Israel. And when she heard about this Galilee Institute, she was very interested in learning about the program. So I guess it's still being developed. And what is the intention? 18-month program for a very small group of varied ages?
So the flagship program would be most likely, I mean, that's where we're heading, is an 18 months program. There will be shorter programs. I'm not talking about the recreation and 1 day, 1 week, 1 hour, but there will be more short programs such as a month, 3 months, very specific in certain areas, not to mention continual education. But if for some reason, yes, you only have 2 to 3 months and then you have another career, you have some other obligation, down the road, there will be these sort of programs. But the one that we're launching with, the flagship culinary program with Stephen and Linda Rosenthal, and the program is named after them, is about 18 months. And I can tell you a bit of kind of inside details, keep it for the 29 people on this call, which is probably recorded. But the idea with that program is that for the first 12 months, we want to allow you or your daughter or somebody to really experience everything, from knife skill to baking, to bread baking, to winemaking with some of Josh's friends, to really experience everything, so that slowly we, us, the team, and you can identify what you're really good at and also what you're really not good at. One of the classes, for instance, it's currently named as things I should have learned at culinary school, but nobody bothered teaching me. And as somebody who runs a food business for about 15 years now, I dealt today with the elevator guy, the AC people, the electricity, the phone company, my accountant, and my attorney. It was 1:15 in the afternoon before I could even start talking about food. And these are the experiences that we want to share with our students, not to intimidate them by any means, is to give them the full perspective of what it is to be in it. It is a business at the end of the day. And then after those 12 months of really experienced everything and taking classes and visiting things and things really I wish I did, and I went to a pretty good school in France, I didn't do half of these things, is really to sit down with these students and say, okay, where do you see yourself going? Do you want to cook? Great, let's pursue that. Do you want to make chocolate? We're going to have a chocolate lab where you can make chocolate from bean to bar, from roasting the beans and then conching them and winnowing and all of these fancy terms. There's going to be a beer brewery. No offense, Josh, sorry, but we're building a beer brewery on the second floor, which is probably where my office is going to be. Allowing you to say, okay, I think this is where I want to go, and then spend about 3 months on doing a little bit more in that area, and then really spending the end of your degree with us, your last 3 months, of coming up to us and saying, this is what I want to major in. I want to go to a winemaker, and I want to help them or work with them to develop a new vintage or a new cuvee or a new line, from creating the labels and the bulbs and the blends of the varietals and whatever you'll present to us and to the staff, that's fine with us. And even at graduation, it's definitely not the end of your journey with GCI. We hope that this is a continuous for the remaining of your professional life. You'll come back, you'll teach, you'll give back to the community, you'll come and learn. It's really just the beginning of a much longer journey, because I have seen, sadly, over the years, as somebody who hire graduates, is the frustration of the students and also the parents who spend good money on these schools, and saying, I wish I knew what I was getting into, because I really don't like cooking in a restaurant, but I like making floral arrangements. To me, it's fantastic. We had a great conference in September where people kept on talking about farm to table and farm to table this. And I said, everybody talks about the farm, nobody talks about the table. And somebody said, I don't understand what you mean. I said, we will be taking our students to meet people who make dining tables and silverware and dishes and glasses, because that's part of the culinary world. Somebody's got to make those. And so this is how complex or how open-minded we are with GCI. There's really no right or wrong. It's whatever that fits our students. We want to be there to guide them towards that professional path, whether they open their own business, whether they work for somebody else. That's kind of where we see it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat box. Otherwise, before I turn...
On the next page, perhaps?
No, I don't think so. That's it. So before I turn it over to our Tri-State President, Michael Kessler, I do want to take an opportunity again to thank Andrew Kent for letting us work with him with the ShopRites in Englewood and in Paramus. If you haven't been there, they have a huge selection, really a huge selection of kosher wines. They also have other wines if you're interested, but one of the largest selections of kosher wines in our Bergen County, market. So do avail yourselves of either Paramus or, the Englewood. And without any more further ado, Michael, please.
Thanks, Bob. Wow, wasn't that amazing? Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Lior. You guys were great. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Michael Kessler, and I'm at a disadvantage because I already had like 2 glasses of wine, and everyone else who spoke before me didn't. But Bob, you did a good job asking those questions. I am the Tri-State President. I'm also a proud member of the Century Council and the King Solomon Society. I just, something came to me, what Lior said. He said JNF brought his 25-year-old dream to life. Well, I thought about that. As a donor, I know personally that JNF makes dreams a reality. If you in this audience have a dream and you want to invest in Israel, I know that if you invest with the Jewish National Fund, they can make that dream happen and be a reality for you. I met a friend who was into lacrosse. He said to me, I want to build a lacrosse field in Israel. I said, we will make it happen. And right now it's being built and it will be used in the Gaza envelope. And it's just amazing what JNF does in Israel. So I assure you that no donation is too small and none is too big. We made Lior's dream come a reality, and you could help in any way you can. I really, really do appreciate it, as do Bob and Joan. Please be on the lookout. We have a breakfast coming up in April 18th, which features the Stars of Fouda. That's going to be at 10:30. But before we say goodnight, I want to show you a brief video on the GCI, the Galilee Culinary Institute, and you'll see how Lior's dream will become a reality sooner than we think. So thank you, and I appreciate your time tonight.
I'm super excited to be sharing with you our upcoming Culinary Academy with the Jewish National Fund and myself in creating a unique international culinary center in the Upper Galilee in Israel.
Not a cooking school, a full-blown culinary arts school where you will learn everything about culinary arts, from the front of the house to the back of the house, from food security to food technology, from inventory to bookkeeping and accounting and running your own restaurant. Our students will be trained by top professionals and celebrity chefs that will be coming. And we will turn the Upper Eastern Galilee to the culinary capital of the world. Stay tuned.